While everyone's focused on the drama on Capitol Hill with the Attorney General and the Mueller report, the Trump administration has been ratcheting up its immigration crackdown. Now, it is ordering more restrictions on asylum seekers at the Mexican border. The president, he'd like to charge application fees and restrict work permits. The White House is giving the Homeland Security Department 90 days to institute these changes. And that's on top of even more bad news when it relates to the border. A 16-year-old boy died at a Texas hospital. That's after he got sick at a shelter while in U.S. custody. The boy, whose name is not being released, is an unaccompanied minor from Guatemala. That all comes on the heels of new revelations about the chaos and the confusion of the administration's separation of families. NBC got its hands on emails from a government official that shows just how bad things are. Quote, "We do not have any linkages from parents to children, save for a handful. We have a list of parent alien numbers, but no way to link them to children." Now, the American Civil Liberties Union is suing the government over separation of families, and my next guest, he is the lead attorney. Lee Gellert, he is the deputy director of the ACLU's Immigrants' Rights Project. And Lee, let's start right there with the reporting of NBC. The administration told us, didn't they, after the expose happened that they were doing the family separations, that they had a database and they were tracking family or parents and children, that, you know, they weren't doing this the back of an envelope, they knew where they were. It turns out that was all a lie.
Absolutely. And so we've known for a long time that they had no tracking system, and recently, they very candidly admitted it, because we are now searching for thousands more families that were never reported but were separated. But what's interesting about this new reporting is that at the same time the administration at a high level was saying, well, of course we can find all the parents and children and match them, emails were floating around within the agency saying, no, we have no tracking system. And I think the fact that the administration was trying to tell the public, of course we know where all the families are, you know, now shows that they actually knew they didn't have that information. You know, I think we're probably looking at a lot more bombshells like that over the coming months as more and more information comes about exactly what was happening.
I go out of my way, Lee, to try to acknowledge that the immigration challenges we're facing right now are not simplistic. There's not some magic bullet that solves all the problems. I've been down to the border and I've seen the challenges that exist there. That said, for people with short memories, the administration consciously chose to do this. They only revealed this after they were exposed. They lied about it, and now they're asking, even though they had an urgency apparently to separate child from parent, and they did it so as a punitive measure, they're now saying they need 2 years not to reunite the families, even though there's a court order to do it far faster than that, but just to identify the kids. There's no urgency on this administration's part to fix the problem they created.
You're right, and I think you've made a couple of very important points. Let me start with the first one that you made, which is that immigration is not easy. And I feel that reasonable people can disagree about certain types of immigration problems and what the best fix is. But I think what we're dealing with here is something that reasonable people shouldn't disagree with. Taking a little baby from their parents, a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, while the baby is screaming, please, or the child is screaming, don't take me away from my parents. That's not within the spectrum of reasonable debates. And that's why no prior administration, Democratic or Republican, has ever done this. And I think that's what we're talking about. We're talking about things that neither Republicans or Democrats have ever wanted to do. And now they're saying, well, look, we didn't tell you about these thousands of other separations. We'd like 2 years just to identify them. Importantly, I was back in court and the judge said, no way for the 2 years. I want all this done in 6 months and on a rolling basis, so most of the families are identified way before 6 months. But your other point is about the urgency. That's exactly right. When the United States government, with all its resources, actually cares about something and wants to do something, it can do it very, very quickly. there's just no sense that this is a priority, that this is an urgent matter to get these children back with their parents, and that's why they're asking for so much time. When they needed to separate the families or wanted to separate the families, then they put all the resources on that were necessary.
And in fact, they're just saying now they want 180 days to have every asylum case resolved, even though the courts can never do that. But they put a timeline on that, but now they want to take a multiple of that to try and figure out where the parents and the kids are. Finally, Lee, the idea that you're going to charge somebody a fee to seek asylum in this country, again, not every case is the same. But again, personally, and you spent far more time than me, I've met kids that were raped, parents that were tortured, spouses who lost their husband to violence for their home countries. They travel thousands of miles to get here with nothing but the clothes on their back, and now we're going to charge them a fee to come here for asylum. I mean, it's like out of a bad movie script, but that's the policy Stephen Miller and friends are now seeking.
Right. I mean, the people with the best claims, the people who are most desperate, are often going to be the most destitute. They're going to get here exactly as you said, with just the clothes on their back. They're not going to have money, and it can't be that whether you're sent back to persecution or death is going to hinge on whether you were able to have money at the time. That just can't be. And I think more generally, this is a very dangerous road we're going on, attacking asylum seekers and refugees. You know, what I think everyone needs to step back and look at a little history. Right now, it's Central Americans who need our help, and there's a humanitarian crisis in their countries, and they're fleeing serious danger. But it's not always been Central Americans. And I think what we learned after World War II, and the whole world learned, is, look, we need to provide a refuge for people who are fleeing persecution. Is everyone going to get asylum here? Of course not, but we need to provide a meaningful process. We have to. It's our law, it's international law, and it's basic humanity to make sure that people are not stuck in countries where they're going to be killed because of their race, their religion, or something along those lines.
And just as an aside, even though these things on their face, in my opinion, are just wrong, it's also not working. We're now at a 12-year high. So if all these punitive measures were supposed to be deterrents, it's going in many ways the opposite direction of the administration's intent. Lee, I always appreciate a few minutes. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
When we come back, we're going to stay on the subject of immigration and another controversy surrounding it relating to our president. This one involves Trump's golf clubs in New York and New Jersey. It also involves a lawsuit alleging mistreatment. After the break here, we'll have a special report.